Hello fellow tankers, this is Dauntless and welcome to Scout Guide. For this episode, I'll be showcasing how to spot the most effectively on the map Live Oaks. Now Live Oaks, a lot of people when they think about this map, they don't really think about this as a great spotting map, and really if you don't play it right, there's really not a lot of opportunities to spot, especially when you spawn on the south. But when you spawn on the north, there are actually a couple great opportunities that can net you some really high spotting damage if you play it correctly. Now a lot of people play their light tanks incorrectly on this map, and this is one of those maps that you see a lot of people that just really don't know what they're doing, and they just kind of YOLO in the very beginning, especially down in like the D5, D6 area at the very beginning, and they end up getting themselves killed. And you really don't want to do that, especially in big maps like this. Light tanks are, this is the best map for light tanks because you can really abuse that camouflage and view range. So again, when you log into Live Oaks with a light tank, don't sacrifice yourself very quickly and try to play as best as possible. So anyway, we'll get this game started, and we are going to talk about the north base first. Now the north base, when you spawn, it's very important that you get to this location quickly, and again, don't play it poorly like I see a lot of people. A lot of players in light tanks make the mistake of pushing out here too aggressively and getting themselves killed and lit. Now again, you can't help it if the enemy has light tanks to counter you, but it is important that you swing wide like this, follow this exact trail, and get into position. Now if you get here quick enough, you're going to be able to sit right in this position exactly. Remember this location here, and you're going to be able to pretty much spot the entirety of the enemy team pushing across, especially if they're in slower heavy tanks. This is beautiful because this allows your team that's sitting behind you to just completely farm the entirety of the enemy team. Now this doesn't always work out. You can get yourself lit if a light tank pushes down, but look at the team comp, realize that they only have like one light tank, and the odds of that are pretty slim. Now it's important that you sit far enough back behind this building to protect yourself from being lit from anything that might be pushing down here, but for the most part, if you sit into this bush correctly, and as long as they don't have a counter light tank playing, you should be fine, and you can easily get thousands and thousands of spotting damage if you play this right. And then if the heavy tanks also play not too smart and just decide to push across the field, even if they push as far back as possible in this aggressive location, you'll be able to spot the entirety of them pushing across, which again gives your tank destroyers that are sitting back opportunity to just go to town on them, and you'll be able to just farm a lot of spotting damage. Now once you exhaust this location and you realize that there's nothing left to spot, and a lot of them are scared of you and hiding back behind this hill, what I usually do is kind of duck down like this and drive back and forth along this while occasionally cresting after you get unlit, and you'll be able to spot them. Alternatively, you'll be able to spot things that are deep in this area here, but again, this location works great for things like this. And as you can see, it's very easy to get lots and lots of spotting damage as long as you have tank destroyers and even medium tanks sitting up on this knoll. But this knoll is really the only location that can give you that assist fire, and without them there, this position is worthless. So again, make sure that you have team members sitting back there backing you up, and this spot is extremely rewarding. Alright, I wanted to talk about a little bit of a different strategy when you spawn on the north base. Now, by strategy, I mean a different passive scouting location. Now, this bush right here works great for spotting your enemies as they push across for artillery, but how many times have you guys been in the scenario where your entire team goes into the city because they're mostly heavy tanks, and you're left with tank destroyers that are all camping base, and no one goes the 9-0 line? Now, it's okay to set up in this bush initially to just kind of get a feel for what's pushing and give your artillery chances to fire, but a lot of the time you're not going to survive if you sit here any longer than this. So it's okay to just fall back when you get the initial spots, avoid getting lit if possible, and fall back. There's nothing wrong with falling back when you're outnumbered, especially in a light tank, because you really can't afford to take any hits. So falling back is definitely the best option, and you can see that there are multiple tank destroyers with Arty and even more tank destroyers coming to help aid. So the best thing you can do is get far enough away, but not too far to where you can outspot your own tank destroyers who probably have camouflage nets and binoculars activated, and spot the enemy for your team. Now this is a great bush right here that you can sit in. Make sure you're pointing in the opposite direction, so if you do get lit, you can get out of there as quickly as possible. But sitting here, you're going to easily be able to light anything coming towards you, and your tank destroyers that are sitting base are going to be able to just completely go to town on them, which is awesome. If you find that they're getting a little too close for comfort, drive directly away from this bush to avoid getting lit, and you can also take this bush that's right here if you want to get a little bit safer. if, let's say, your team is not as vast as, you know, the tank destroyers that we see here, and you only have 1 or 2 guys in the base, and you want to be a little bit safer. Again, the bush right here where this WT is sitting is considerably safer because there's a lot less distance for you to travel to get around into safety behind this rock pile over here. Alright, so let's talk about what to do when you spawn on the southern base. Now, the southern base is not as good in my opinion because there are not that many opportunities to spot all the heavy tanks as they push across into the city, and there's really not a lot of opportunity for your tank destroyers to shoot across at them. But the first position that I usually like to take is this bush right here. From this bush right here, you can pretty much spot anything that's going to be sitting there to counter light tanks that might be trying to spot your team, as well as tank destroyers that might be sitting on that knoll. It doesn't always work to sit here very long, so if you think that nothing is going to sit there, it's okay to move forward. Generally, I do like to sit there for about the first 2 minutes of the game to get a feel for any tank destroyers like this Jagdtiger that might be taking his time to get up on this knoll. And from that position, it's actually located exactly right here, and from that point, there's a line that goes straight up, and any heavy tank that crosses that line, you will be able to get spots on. Now, unfortunately, it's not that productive to spot them because when you're in that position, nothing can really shoot what you spot except for possibly Artie. So it's okay to be really aggressive right here if you realize that no one is actually going to be pushing. So again, if you light nothing from here, it's okay to be somewhat aggressive and get these spots for your team. You're guaranteeing that you're going to spot everything, and with your good camouflage, the odds of you getting lit are very slim. And from this position, if there's nothing to counter you, you can actually drive around this side and spot Artie, spot tank destroyers, or whatnot for your team. But again, in this game, it's a poor example because you really have nothing backing you up except for this low that's pushing forward, and there's not a lot of opportunities. But I just wanted to show these 2 locations because they are relatively safe to play, especially this first one. This is where I would recommend sitting for at least the first 2 minutes of the game. Alright, so I'm going to jump into this game really quickly here, and let's just say that you're a light tank and you decide that no one went north to get you shots and the majority of your team goes to the south. Now, this happens a lot of the time, just like a lot of your heavy tanks going to the city when you're playing on the north. This is a very common occurrence for this map, and that's why I'm showcasing how you can use your light tank effectively here. Now, a lot of players will push forward and go down the 9-0 line when you're in a light tank and you feel like you're doing well to get spots, but in my opinion this is a mistake because look at those tank destroyers. It's very easy to get spotted and killed when you're a light tank when you push just straight down a predictable path like this. And so what I like to do is push around this little crest right here because this gives you a great opportunity to spot anything that might be sitting in this area here. So these bushes provide you with some good cover, and this knoll right here pretty much protects you from anything that could possibly shoot you. So just kind of shoot up into this bush. Now, that was a little bit of a misplay. You'll get yourself lit if you're not completely in the bush, but the idea is to try to situate yourself inside of that bush, and all your allies that are pushing across from here will be able to get shots, as well as things that might be sitting here, which generally there's at least 1 or 2 tank destroyers. And you can play this ridge all day long. There are multiple ways to play this ridge. You can come up here, you can even crest this train track if you're feeling a little bit more risky and spot tank destroyers that might be pushing back here. And as you can see right there, that T-30 got lit because of us. And tank destroyers will be really frustrated with you just being here, and without Artie to contest, this place is amazing. It is difficult to get yourself into this situation if anything is contesting this 0 line up into the E0, F0 area, but as long as your team controls this and they're forced to fall back, this whole position is amazing for getting spots. So just something to keep in your arsenal. Anyway, guys, that was my guide on how to spot effectively on the map Live Oaks. Hopefully you guys found this guide useful. If you did, I'd really appreciate it if you give it a like down below. And I'd also really appreciate it if you'd tell your friends about my channel and my scout guides to your friends that play tanks, as well as your clan members and whatnot, because the more people that find out about my channel, the faster it'll grow, and the more feedback I can get from it, and then from there I can just make my channel even better for you guys. And if you haven't subscribed already and you just stumbled across this guide, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel for more content like this in the future. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys later.